I greet the Church of God in the name of our loving Savior Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
We are going to get into our lesson. Before we get into our lesson, we want to ask that we close our eyes this night. Our kind and loving Heavenly Father, we thank you this morning for the gift of life. We thank you for the privilege that we are called among. Father, as we are going to get into the lesson for this week, ask that may you just open our minds, may this guide us as we are going through this lesson, so that this lesson may help us to move from one step to another in our faith, so that we can live according to your will in Jesus' name. Our lesson this week is lesson 10. Lesson 10, we are talking about remember, do not forget. Remember, do not forget. These are opposite words. To remember is not to forget. It's not to forget, is to remember. So this is the lesson that we are going to start this week. Because of our time, we are going to just run through a few points that I have highlighted here. And if there is anyone who has got anything to say concerning the lesson, can just show by raising the hand, and we can give each other a chance. Remember, do not forget. Why is God said we need to remember? Why did God remind us? Because He knew that in our life, we as humans, as our nature, we will reach at a point that we forget. So God here is reminding us that we need to remember. We don't need to forget. Memory text is Deuteronomy chapter 9, verse 7. Deuteronomy chapter 9, verse 7. I'm going to read it. It says, remember, do not forget how you provoked the Lord your God to wrath in the wilderness, from the day that you departed from the land of Egypt until you came to this place. You have been rebellious against the Lord. This verse is so harsh. God is saying, remember, do not forget how you provoked Him. We have provoked God so many times. We have been rebellious in so many things, in so many ways. So God is reminding the Israelites here before they have entered the promised land. He's reminding them to remember how the Israelites were provoking God, how the Israelites were behaving when they left Egypt, going to the land of the promised land. Chapter 9, it's all about Moses reminding the people about the many rebellious things that they have done and how they provoked God. So God here sees it wise that He needs to remind the children of Israel before they get into the promised land. Words appear all through the Bible. Remember and forget. both refer to something human, something that happened in our minds, in both our verbs. So a verb is doing work, so we need to remember, and remember that we need to do it. And they are opposite to remember, as I said earlier. God often tells his people to remember all the things that he has done for them, to remember his grace for them and his goodness, telling his people, the Hebrew people do not forget what the Lord has done for them, but also most important, they will not forget what they are calling in him. So God was saying to these people, you need to remember how I have helped you, how I have redeemed you from the Egyptians. And most important part is the calling of the Israelites, that they were a peculiar people, that they need to remember that. It is different for us today, both at a corporate level, and even more at a personal level. How easy is it to forget what God has done for us? So at a personal level, or at a corporate level, or as a church, it is easy for us as human beings to forget what God has done for us. We can talk of the way that God has done to us during this COVID pandemic. But when this pandemic is over, it is easy for us to just forget what God has done for us. So God is saying to us today, whatever that we are doing, whatever that we need to do, we just need to remember that it is because God has been on our side and God has been taking care of us. On Sunday, remembering the rainbow. When you go to the book of Genesis, from chapter 6, we learn that after God has seen that the world is much corrupt, so he ordered, told Noah to build the ark, because he said, I'm going to destroy the world with the flood. And on chapter 9, after the flood, then God said, I'm going to put a rainbow in the sky as a sign, as a covenant between me and you, that I'm not going to destroy the flesh of the flood again. So God said, God doesn't need a rainbow for him to remember anything, but he was just doing it in the way that we understand us as human beings, in the way that we understand us as the people. So hence we see the rainbow when the rain wants to rain, we see the rainbow. It is a constant reminder that God is keeping his covenant, that he's not going to destroy the world with the flood again. Of course, God doesn't need the rainbow to remember the promise and his covenant. He has just spoken in a language that humans could understand. If anything, the rainbow is for us as humans to remember. So it is for us as humans to remember that God is not going to destroy the world with flood again. Hence, we see here the importance of the idea of remembering God's promises, remembering God's warnings, remembering God's actions in the world. The rainbow in the sky becomes even more important today when it's based on the continuity of the laws of nature. But the scientists now, they have got a different opinion on the rainbow, on the floods. They even say that the floods did not come. And after the flood came, they even say that, let me look for the point here, that was written by Ellen White in the book Patriarchs and Prophets, page 97. It says, how fascinating that Ellen White wrote that before the flood came, many people had the same idea that the continuity of the laws of nature ruled out the possibility that a worldwide flood could ever happen. She wrote, that the wise men had argued that the nature laws are so firmly established that God himself could not change them. So the scientists are saying the laws of nature, God doesn't even change, cannot afford to change the laws of nature. In the first place, who put in place the laws of nature? It is God himself. So if God himself put the laws of nature, how can you not be able to change it if he wants to change it? So these are what the scientists are saying. But however, God, his words told us about the flood and gave the world a sign, not only of the flood, but also of his promise not to bring one again. That's if we remember what the rainbow means, we can have the assurance it across the sky in the beautiful colors that God's word is sure. And if we can trust his word on his promise, why not we can trust him now? So God always keeps his covenant and always keeps the promises that he said. On Monday, concerning the days that are past, Deuteronomy chapter 4 is where Moses was telling the children of Israel about the statutes and the judgments that the Lord has given them. The reason for these statutes and judgments is that when the children of Israel could obey these statutes, it was for their own benefit, that they were not going to be destroyed, they were not going to have any other thing in their life, but it was for them to just live well. In Deuteronomy chapter 4, we read the wonderful admonitions that the Lord gave to his people through Moses regarding their great privileges as God's chosen people. He had redeemed them out of Egypt by trials, by signs, by wonders, by wars, by mighty hand, and an outstretched arm, by the great terrors, according to all the Lord your God did for him. So Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 32 and 39, Moses also is pointing the people back to all the history that God has done from Egypt through in the wilderness, going to the promised land. So this history for the children of Israel, it was very important for them because it reminds them on how God has delivered them with his mighty hands. Moses points the people back through all history, even to the creation itself, and asks them rhetorically if anything in all history had ever been done as was done for them. In fact, he tells them to ask that is to study for themselves and see if anything such as what they experienced happened. So Moses is telling them to start if the way God delivered them, the way God gave them food in the wilderness, has it ever happened before? It was first of its kind. So when God is doing something, he is doing it on a purpose that we remember it sometime after it is done, so that we can see his marvelous hands, we can see his mighty power that he's doing to us. In some ways, even more astonishing, God speaking to them at Sinai, which allowed them to hear the words out of the midst of the fire. So we see it's Mount Sinai, how God spoke to the children of Israel. It was strange, but the children of Israel will remember that at Mount Sinai, God spoke to them. We can also go back and see the calling of Moses, the burning bush. It was strange also, but it reminds Moses that God had what God had told them. Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 4, thou shalt keep therefore his statutes and his commands, which I command thee this day, that it may go well with thee and with thy children after thee, thou mayest prolong the days upon the earth which the Lord God given thee. So this command in Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 40, it helps the children of Israel that if they keep this statute and these commandments that God was giving them, it was going to go well with them. They were going to live well in the land that God was going to give them. Tuesday, take it lest you forget. Take it is a word that can be used in different forms or translated in different ways, meaning keep yourself, meaning to preserve, meaning to watch, or meaning to guard. So God is saying we need to preserve everything that happened in our lives, everything that He has said, so that we will not forget any time after. Now, though the Lord tells the people, each one individually, the verse is singing to guard themselves, lest they forget. This is not forget too much in the sense of memory loss. Though over time and in new generation it could come, but more in the sense of being lax about their covenant obligation. That is, they were to be mindful about who they were and what that meant in terms of how they were to live before God, before other Hebrews, before the strangers among them, and therefore, and before the nations around them. So, to guard and to preserve, it was for the benefit of the children of Israel that whenever they go into the land that God was giving them, the nations around them, the people around them, the strangers around them, it was for them to know who are they and what is their purpose in life. So this was important for them so that they would not ever forget what the Lord has done to them from the land of Egypt. We can also see on Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 9, it only says, only take it to thy soul and keep thy soul diligently, lest thou forget the things which thine eyes have seen, and lest they depart from thy heart all the days of thy life, but teach them thy sons and thy sons' sons. So God is saying, that all these things that He has done to us, to the children of Israel, we need to remember it. Only not remembering it, but to teach them to their children, and their children to teach them to their children also. It was for the purpose of preserving the covenant that God has done to them. When is the eating food? Many times when we have eaten, when we are full, it is our nature that we forget. So God is saying, when you have eaten, when you are full, now need not to forget. That was Wednesday. There's a point that is down here, that is, no matter how much money and how many material possessions we have here, we are all flesh and blood awaiting a home in the ground. What should this tell us about the dangers that come from wealth? In that way, they can make us forget our need of the only one who can deliver us from the hole in the ground. So it is our nature as human beings that when we have everything that we need, we forget who has blessed us with those things. We then say that it is our power that is giving us this wealth. Remember Nebuchadnezzar, when he was on the rooftop and he was seeing he was admiring the nice gardens of Babylon. Then he said, "This I have done with my own hands, but it was for the help. It was from the help of the Lord." So it is our nature that when we have everything that we need, we forget that God has blessed us with this. So yes, this lesson came to us at the time that we needed it most. That we need to remember what God has done to us. That's the remembering that we remember that He was Deuteronomy chapter 5, verse 15, it also says the same. Remember that you will stay in the land that God has given you. Deuteronomy chapter 6 also says the same. Deuteronomy chapter 24, it also says the same. But there is a service that the children of Israel were supposed to do, the one that they did in Egypt. And God says this service, the Passover service, it is a remembrance for you and your children, that when they asked you, why are you doing this service? You would say that because it reminds us of the hand of the Lord that has taken us from the land of Egypt. So even us today as Christians, we did the service, and it is a remembrance that Christ has redeemed us from the sins that we were in. So in summary, this is the lesson that we have this week. Maybe 2-3 minutes. Is there anyone wants to say anything on this lesson before we close? Yes, ma'am.
I just want to share my feelings when I was reading this lesson this week. That God points to positives and to negatives. But he also points us to notice how he does things at a particular time. And more than anything, I think that for myself, I just thought that this remembering and not forgetting, and the repetition of the same thing, but from different angles, says to us, take nothing for granted. Notice everything that happens, because I, God, who allows these things to happen, I have a purpose for each and everything that happens. And when you have taken notice of everything, then do not be complacent. Always be on guard. The last part, he actually reminds the children of Israel that he is taking them to this land they are about to enter in. Not because they've done anything great, but the purpose is that they should represent him. First of all, the purpose is so that they can actually honor him, God. But also they should represent him amongst one another. And then, as a group, they must represent him, God, to the nations they are joining. So it's quite a big responsibility that the children of Israel were given. And so it is with us. It is a big responsibility. We cannot be complacent. We cannot, even when we think we are doing well, be lax about things. We always have to be alert. We always have to be on guard. Thank you.
Computers where we store information. God gave us brains to store all this information. And he knew this information. It is not only for Ubuti is our life. This morning, prayer 5 a.m. prayer 30 David was old, but funny enough, his brains were alert. Zazi says this, yeah. So that is why God wants to tell you. So that we mustn't forget But today we don't ungazibuza into ezidala thina sesizilibele because wathi funa usitola kuma-computers sifuna kubhalwa iy'ncwadi kanti God gave us brains which were more than that. You understand? When you know a thing, it changes as it goes. It changes. But if you got it in your brain, it will never change. And you will always, because you've got an experience of this thing, you will talk it, you will tell it as it is. That is why God says, remember, don't forget.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else? Okay, it seems that there's no one else. So, in conclusion, the book of Desire of Ages, page 83, my wife writes that whether Jews in the wilderness, Christians in Ephesus, or Seventh-day Adventists, anywhere in the world, how crucial is it for us always to remember and not to forget what God has done for us in Christ? No wonder then that we have these words. It will be well for us to spend a 34-hour each day in contemplation of the life of Christ. We should take it point by point and let imagination grasp each sin, especially the close ones, as we thus dwell upon his great sacrifice. For us, our confidence in him will be more constant, our love will be more quickened, and we shall be more deeply imbued with his spirit. Book of Desire of Ages, page 83. So this is what it says. It is important for us to remember everything that God has done, so that at the end we will not say it is by our might, by our power that we have accumulated this, that we have achieved this, but it is because of God's grace. May the Lord help us, that is, you are going to ponder upon these words and live according to them. May it continue to build our characters, and it gives us a lot of hope and faith. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen.
We're going to just pray, close the lesson. Our kind and loving Heavenly Father, thank you for the lesson that you have taught us, that we do not need to forget, but we need to remember. Thank you for the covenant that you have continued to keep on. And thank you for your word that is everlasting. Help us as well going to continue with the program for the day. Bless it, bless us, bless each one of us.
Amen. Thank you, Lord, for saving my soul. Thank you, Lord, for making me whole. Thank you, Lord, for giving to me the great salvation so and free. Thank you, Lord, for saving my soul. Thank you, Lord, for making me whole. Thank you, Lord, for giving to me the great salvation so full and free.
Siyabulisa ibandla likaNkulunkulu Yesu Kristu Nkosi. Amen. Ixesha lokuqala inkonzo dumisa ngengoma sicela sibhale amehlo sicela bawuthandekayo hlala Kristu ndemntu zonke sibonke ixesha sibulela uthando lwakho sibulela ingcinga yakho sibulela ukuthengiswa ukuze bawuthandekayo sivuseleleke bonke nangenkosi sisicela simemukele ukukho kwakho sibulela praise you name must grow as a clear ahlala uthandekayo asikhulisa it wasn't intended all games and subject and that's about tell us only number 131 I want to before I take choices 131 So tell us any choices now start with that. Number 11. Jogula two. Jogula
I greet the wonderful Church of God in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Amen. We are going to have the announcements. It is brought to note that the Mangweng SDA Church requested the service of Dada Miguel Bangisi for today. Also, our head elder and elder Ozone are not around us today. We are also reminded, as being announced in the past, that we will be having our Holy Communion. So the church is urged to prepare itself for that on the 11th of this month, we'll be conducting a Holy Communion here at the church. Last week in Motlhakeng Church, we had TOC baptisms where candidates from our church were baptized. We had 3 candidates from our church, and we had 4 candidates that came from our company at 2 and 3. So all those members will be welcomed officially next week Sabbath. So next week Sabbath, the members who were baptized last week at Motlhakeng Church. The baptism were the TOC baptism. You will remember that TOC conducted an effort for 2 weeks via the How TV, where our local pastors and our presidents were the speakers of that particular effort. So the outcome of that effort led to us having a joint district baptism at Motlhakeng Church last week. The The other announcement is that Pathfinders and Adventurers, you are reminded that there will be a semi-visual camporee that will start on the 19th to the 25th of December. It is organized by the TOC also. We received a communication from the Director of Adventist Health Ministry, where we are encouraged. The letter entails that on the 8th of November 2021, a new variant called Omicron was detected, and it was announced by a National Health of Communicational Disease that was announced that it is affecting the country, and it is being declared that it was on the 2nd that Gauteng had a high new cases. It was about 11,557 new cases of infected people with COVID, where 9,984 are people who are within the TOC territory. So we are encouraged that we should adhere to legislative health protocols, where we'll be expected to ensure social distancing, we'll be expected also to wear masks, we'll sanitize when we have gatherings, we'll also encourage to wash our hands regularly. So we are encouraged to adhere to the call by the National President of South Africa that we should adhere to all protocols for COVID-19 prevention. May the church bless, God bless the church and have a wonderful service. Amen.
All right, basically, let's go on to the way to scripture and choice. Moving from 2, 3 to 4. Dear to the fellowship. 2. See to yes, That are watching online to choose to have their choices. So we are asking you even at home to raise your hand and give us a choice. Okay, go to choice. Right. Okay, must we're going to just one concept. Okay,
Number 39. Phambi kokuba unumber 39 aqale ngizocela usikhumbuza azokubambela.
Yesu uliliona. Yesu uliliona. Ilikuye usitisora. Jengeze timute papa. Yesu te ukasema. Yesu Kristu uliliona. Okay, we have a choice of line 264. 264.
Can you take 208 and 208? Solani tuani puya sekelespa. Solani
Amen.
Amen.
And considerando nova experience in ngifuna nje ukufunda izwi for our ngifunda kwincwadi yendumiso isahluko samashumi amathathu anesixhenxe. The Psalms chapter 37. Our verse for consideration is verse 25. I will read in your hearing in the King James Version. The Bible reads, I have been young, and now I am old. Yet have I not seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging for bread. May the Lord add the rich blessing on the reading of his word forever. I greet church in my Bible. I ask, Amen. And we're going to sing 180. Let us all stand up. We're going to sing 180.
May you rest in peace as Zion. May you rest in God. May you rest in God as Zion. May mercy protect the tortoise of the
So tell everybody that sentence. Andinibulise lonke ekuseni igama likaYesu Kristu wasifela. Amen.
Amen.
Xa singena kwixesha lokubulela, ndifuna ukunikhumbuza ngevesi ebesiyifundile apha phakathi kwethu. Fumaneka phaa kuDeuteronomy, the chapter is 8. Deuteronomy, the chapter is 8. I want to read 2 verses. Verse 10, verse 11. Uthi ke verse 10. When thou hast eaten and art full, thou shalt bless the Lord thy God for the good land which he hath given thee. Moses says this before it happens. So remember, these are prophetic words. Then he says, in verse 11, beware that thou forget not the Lord thy God in not keeping his commandments and his judgments and his statutes, which I command thee this day. I want to say, this does not only refer to bringing in the tithes and the offerings that they be food in God's house. It also refers to your time, to your capabilities, to your influence, to how you conduct yourself. And it says, do not forget how God has told you how to do these things in his commandments, in his statutes, and in his judgments. I call upon each and every one of us this morning that we may bring our all to God in the time and in the space he has given us, that we may be good influence to one another and to those who live among us. With those words, I'm going to invite you to read with me in prayer. Oh, Jesus, we need to go. Okay. Somebody has said, "Where to hospital, Australia?" So, where we come back from, Linda, our corner, enjoy the Ngale yore ngala ususu sizilingana kwelo konke esibuko konke esina sikucela mzali usikhumbuze isithundeze ifanele ukuba impilo zethu siziphile njengabantwana siqhutywa ngokwengcwele usibonise amasikwenze usikhokhela kwindlela siphe esimncwele emamelayo siphe inhliziyo elangazelelayo kwenza into yakho ngomthwesa wonke uthi xa usithuma kanani sithi xa simenywa ukuba sincedise ebandleni sincedise emphakathini esiphila nayo wena somandla siphe asikhuthayo sibenocuma inhliziyo zethu lobusuku bethu bukhanye singufundeli imisebenzi esibizwe nawo. Xa ke namhlanje sikhumbula abo bathe ngokuvuma kwakho banganikwa zonke izinto baphelele, kubekho okuthile abangenakho. Isiyinjwele masithi thina esipheleleyo ngezo ndawo ezingaphelelanga sibaxhase isiyinjwele, sihlale sikhumbula ukuba nathi esingasiphelele asiphelelanga, asinalo yonke ekufuneke sinayo. Even as you remind us through the words of Moses to the children of Israel, you keep reminding us, you keep reminding them that they were slaves. You keep reminding them of their inability to redeem themselves, to help themselves, to provide for themselves, and how you, Almighty God, provided for them. Help us then, when you have blessed us, that we may bless those amongst us, around us, and let the blessings flow, even in supporting one another, even in thought, even in word. Oh Lord, help us to tend to forget. When we feel we are able, we tend to forget about those that are not as able as we are. This day, make an impression on us, may leave an impression on us, and may make us want to do more in our lives, in our daily lives, for those who are less able, for those that are disadvantaged, for those that live on the margins of society. Father, we thank you, dear Lord, for all your blessings, even as you will bless us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Number 2. Imula yetilelo, imula yetilelo, isteli sosotano,
Let's pray.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for the gift of life. We thank you for the blessings that you give us this day. Please bless each and every hand that have turned to your words. And bless each and every soul that surrendered to give themselves to you this morning. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Maranatha Masala.
Yes.
Maranatha Masala. It's good to be here. My task this morning is so simple. Before I do that task, I want to welcome each and every visitor that came to church this morning. I want you to feel at home and have a blessed Sabbath. Amen. Amen. Without wasting any time, my task is to introduce the panel that is going to give us service this morning. The one that is emceeing the program this morning is none other than our brother, Marunga. May you stand as the chief officer.
Amen.
And the one that was giving us commentary is Sister Kagiso. Amen.
Amen.
And the one that will be sharing the word for us this afternoon is none other than our own brother Tom, and he is not alone. I will welcome the family also to stand with us as we are welcoming them this morning. Amen.
Thank you. Once more, I'm going to invite the church to stand up with me. We are going to see 35. I should allow and launch the speaker to start.
Kumnandi kwalapha. It's very nice to be here. It's good to be home. Seeing familiar faces and new less familiar faces, but it's good still because we are all in a part of a good big family of God. Hallelujah. I want to begin with a challenge that seeks to disabuse ourselves from thinking that there is one amongst us that has no disability. Limitation is part of humanity. God did not allow us to have anything. I know there are people that think that when they have money and they've been philanthropists for years, that they are now in charge of the world. You don't know what I'm talking about, you know. The people who think that once you have money, you are now in charge. But even they must expect that they have got some limitations. And for all of us, there's a form of disability that we'll have to deal with because we are human. So God did not allow humanity to be absolutely dependent upon itself. God intended that we should learn to depend on Him by beginning to depend on each other. We are not independent. We depend upon God. And that is what we should remember of many things that we have remembered. I realized that this is our reminding each other. The lesson was about remembering. So let's remind each other. So Brother Marunga picked up on the physical dimension in the morning, the issues like dementia, issues like Alzheimer's, cognitive disabilities, and physical disabilities, you know, hearing disabilities, also things like that. I want to dwell on the other side, on the social aspect of it. As you quickly recall, as the summer school students, that a human being is a conglomeration of various aspects: social, physical, and what's the other one? And the spiritual. And the spiritual. All right. So we're going to pick up on the less physical, but on the social aspect. Let's pray. Father, in this your house, with these your children, we have come. We ask that, dear Lord, we do not walk this short journey alone, but that you empower us with the Spirit. Like Moses in the wilderness of old, we dare not move without you. If you are not with us, where can we go? Please come and sanctify this gathering. In Jesus' name, we pray. Amen. SDA, you are not alone. But the Church of Kagiso decided to make an emphasis that we have come this far by faith. I do not know which one is my baby, but somewhere in between, you are not alone and we have come this far by faith. We are going to be navigating the few minutes that are following. Human life is worth living. Human life? Human life it is best to live with others. We cannot live alone. We are not alone. Some of the people we live with have got more limitations than others. And we call this, in a political correct language, the special needs. So, but human life is not static. It doesn't matter what your limitations are. Human life, God did not design it to be static. It is dynamic. It is progressive. We progress in life. We're not standing in one place. When we meet each other 10 years later, we are not where we were 10 years ago. Are we together, saints? But sometimes as we live in this life, we get so preoccupied with our roles. We get preoccupied with acting out our roles. Such that we forget that there are others that we are living with. We are not alone. So in solidarity with the voiceless and the victims of violence, we know about gender-based violence, but also other many natures of violence. They've elected the slogan that we are not alone. However, I got an impression that the church here in Kagiso wanted to take a positive approach when Maruna called me. He says that we do not want to only emphasize on people as the neglected victims, but as those with agency, people that have got a wealth of experience. So the people that we live with have got an experience. So and therefore, as we live a life, we're living a life that expands the scope of human experience. And that is launching us squarely in the text of our consideration of Psalms chapter 37. I've read it, I'm reading it again. I have been young, David writes, in his old age, but now am old. Yet I have never seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging for bread. Longevity of life is a blessing from God. It permits us to take stock of where we have been in our short sojourn in the wilderness of the planet Earth. When we live, we accumulate experience, and the experience that we accumulate is not clean and pure. It is of youthfulness, of failures, and disappointments. And when we tell stories to the next generation that come behind us, they pick up this from our stories words of wisdom. I have been young. There is nothing righteous, dear saints, about a life that is lived in a safe haven, nested in a cocoon. All of us need to get out of our comfort and begin to engage life. Come together. Life demands that we break from the shell of cage and interact with the possibilities and impossibilities that the present life affords. Let's get out there and try things. Human beings are distinguished by their attempt to try to live. We are constantly engaged in a struggle of trying to live. The very reality of being alive forces us to engage with different things
in life for survival, for pleasure, for progress, for flourishing. But life, the fact that you are alive, has already launched you into trying to live. And trying to live, when we try to live our lives, we realize very early that the life in the material world imposes upon us limitations on our ability to live. But the limitation that the material life imposes on us does not free us from living. We still have got to live. Yes, South Africans and Africans. Yes, we have the limitation of colonialism. It is a historical fact that apartheid was here. But you know what? We still have to live together with those limitations. So human life insists, we must insist on living. And in living, we try to improve our ways of living. When we stop trying to live, you know what happens? My baby invites us. I hope we all know where my baby is. When the stresses of the present age take best of us or hit at us, we can only grow with Job. I know that my Redeemer lives. And one of these days, he will stand for the deliverance of those who, when they were trying to live, sought to live with him. And because he lives, we have got confidence to face tomorrow. Because we live, he lives, we can also live. The life of being is calibrated into life stages. And David says, one of those stages of the developmental stages is being a child. And David says, Paul says, I was once a child. And when I was a child, I reasoned like a child. But I became a man, I let go of childish things when I became a man. And started to reason like an old person. When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. But a time comes in everyone's life that a girl should become a woman and a boy should become a man. That is part of life. Life is progressive like that. Time, the time will not permit for us to reflect on everything that we have gone through in our life. But David picks up at the life stage of a youth. He says, I've been young. And when you look at each other's life, there is a good trail that we have been young. There's evidence that attests to our having been young. We have been young. And when we were young, we acted like the young people. But don't get stuck there. In being young. Don't get stuck in youthfulness. Life demands that we move. Move on with other demands of life. Don't get stuck in being young or young person. But someone must not get stuck in the episode that I did when I was young. And this is David that is speaking here. And we know he was young. And we know the things that he did when he was young. But some of us are stuck in the one night when he looked on the window and saw something and acted on something. We are stuck in that. We even forget that God has turned that very night into a Solomon with a blessing, and God blessed him in such a way that there is no one who is blessed like him. Don't get stuck in my youthfulness and in the mistakes that I did when I was young. I've since then moved on. The thing about sadness is unfair, because somehow we forget all the other things that this warrior has done. We forget about Korea in our lives. That David has established for us, because the pain of a nation that went for our nation. We forget that in that valley of Elah, David, volunteered himself to go and fight Korea. Forget him that he was the man of valor. He paid for his lobola with 100 foreskins. You remember that? That's the story of this man. And even in his social activities, he was engaged in his mission. And his mission was that he must do away with the enemies of God. And we judge him when we know that we have not fulfilled our own mission on earth. Some of us have not even identified what is our mission on earth. But David was a man that had to preserve the moral leadership in Israel. At some point, you remember he had Saul right delivered in his hand. He was in that cave of that cave one night, and Saul was there, and he cut his garments as evidence that if I wanted to do that. But David was a moral man. He did not try to Saul, we are embarrassing, come to spear some. But he waited for the right time for him to become a king. Are we together, saints? This is ethical leadership. David gives us the dimension of ethical leadership. So don't you dare get stuck on other things. We know all of other stories, how he delivered Israel many times, and so the life of a Christian has got some glitches as we proceed. It is smooth sailing. So in the chamber, life is filled with this limited structure and these barriers that we all find ourselves. And the issue is not so much about the barriers, but the issue is how do we respond to them? How do we identify and respond to the barriers that life throws at us, but life will continue to throw? You remember when he was a kid, we think that the life of kids is supposed to be smooth sailing. Right in the kingly chambers, his little girl, Tamar, was raped by his king, by his princess, was supposed to take on after him the kingly robe. And I want you to imagine with our modern mind that this son, the son that was going to take over the kingship, was sent to Oakwood College to take on the Adventist institution of leadership studies, because it's going to lead Israel. I want to imagine that Amnon was well prepared to be a king in Israel, but Amnon could not, like his father in his good years, could not self-restrain himself. And we know the story. This man that won the pigeons of the beauty contest in the king, Absalom, who was the world-renowned handsome young man, killed his own brother in defense of his sister. And this mayhem happens in the king chambers. And this illustrates to us that life is filled with limitations and with things that we rather do not like to see. But the point is to respond in ways that are in line with who we are when the life throws at us all these limitations. We must recognize the contributions that David made. And because of that, I've come to announce that in order for us to be human, we ought to be involved. We ought to be, humanity invites us to be involved despite the limitations. We ought to endeavor to be involved. And I think our president of the General Conference is what it means by the total membership involvement. We ought to be involved. The only thing that remains after death is remembering the works that all of us have done while we are living. So we must change the idea that all our existence is about thinking. But our existence is not just about thinking, our existence is about doing work. And we work so we can correct Deca. When he says that I think, therefore I am, we can correct him and say, no, I work, therefore I am. Because no one will remember the things that you thought in your private space. But we all will remember when you departed, the things that you do, the things that you did when you're still alive. How together says, we must endeavor to do things that will be remembered with when we are no longer existing. Yes, that is the story of David is forcing us to think about. And we must keep on recounting in order for us to remember the good things that the Lord has done for us. Count your blessings and name them one by one and remember what the Lord has done for you. All right? And only when we do so can we be able to recount what has occurred in our lives, and then we can assert with the thing today that we have come this far by faith. We have come this far by faith. So the life of a human being is a life of activity. So in order for us to understand what David is talking about, to get a better clarity about this text, I invite us to go to Psalms chapter 1. Psalms chapter 1 reads, "Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, and standeth in the way of sinners, nor sit in the seat of the scornful." So David, when he says, I once was young, but now I am old. I have never seen the righteous. We are trying to define who is the righteous. So David is saying the righteous person is a person that endeavors in his life to be the righteous life. He does not sit with the scornful. He does not sit in the way of the scornful or with the sinners. In other words, it does not mean that you alienate God's people. What it means is that we do not want yearn to do what sinners do. How to gonna say it? So in our lives, when we are the righteous, we are the people that endeavor in all our struggles. Gentleman Solo used to say, we are going to make a family. We are going to make a family. Yeah. But they delight in the law of the Lord. The law of the Lord should be our guide. In every do, we should be guided by the law of God. All right? And not only do we use it as a guide, but every morning we meditate upon the law of God. We try. There are all invitations from every side that invite us to go astray, but we meditate on the law of God. And when we do so, David says, in order to live a life of a righteous person, will be ever like the trees that are planted by the rivers of water and which will never wither. All right? And this tree brings the right fruit in right season and wrong. And then when you bring the right fruit, what are the fruits? When you are called, when the situation you are encountering in life called for long suffering, you know the fruit of the Spirit, so you become long suffering because at the right time you don't say, oh, afterwards I should have been more long suffering in my response to that thing. When it happens, that's what the right means. When it happens, you respond to the situation at hand appropriately. That's what it means for me. Bring forth fruit and the fruit of righteousness at the right time. So when the situation calls for faith, wants to go and build a road or some tent where want to evangelize to and through something. So we need someone to stand in the gap and tell us about faith. So a person that is got the right fruit and the right season, the tree that is planted, it's not because at all times we've got all the things, but when we require, when the situation calls for a particular fruit, we're able to give the fruit that is needed. Are we together? So this is the invitation that David invites us to come to him, to the Lord, and to enjoy the blessing. He says that this person that does these things is blessed. Blessed is the man who delights in the law of God. I'm not sure I hear today that there is now conjugal laws. They are called Noahic laws. I do not know about them. I do not know who those who keep those Noahic laws, what is happening to them. But those that are keeping the laws that God has given us, there's a blessing that follows them. Not so sure about the upcoming events and the changes in the world that we must now follow a certain type of truncated laws. These are the developments we live with, and this is the life that we're living with. But I said that even with these developments, our contribution to life is to live. We've got to be living, interact with the reality of our times, altogether things. I do not know why God has elected that the weaklings like us be the ones that are living at this age. You know, when you read the history books and we see those that lived before us, we realize that these guys were taught. And with the weaklings, we come so quickly, they are able to quickly but God has chosen that it should be us. Maybe God chose that it should be the weaklings that are living in this age so that we may learn more to depend on Him, because you realize very quickly that you cannot depend upon yourself. You need God. Maybe this generation, the blessing that is upon this generation is the blessing of dependence. Maybe you are much more close now than the other generations to depend on God, because we've got nothing else to rely on. I would better things. God has chosen that it shall be us that are going to live in these difficult times. And the Bible says that it is not the case with the ungodly people. It is not the case. They are not only not minding depriving themselves of the blessings, but they verse 4, the ungodly are not so, but are like the chaff of the wind that drives away. So the ungodly people will not linger for long with us. All right, they will be like a chaff, and they will be blown away. And then verse 5 says, therefore the ungodly shall not stand in the judgments. You don't follow that until you read chapter 2 of the book of Psalms. You know, so it gives me an image of the one sitting in the court when you read chapter 2. And it's sitting in the courts with or in a place in the council, maybe it's the Sanhedrin council or someone like that. But the person that does righteousness will be able to stand in those courts. There's no reason for you to fear anything. We will be able to do things, even as the wickedness as we are. We'll be able to stand in the courts of his name and respond in the appropriate way. Are we together? Despite our weaknesses. Are we together, saints? Everyone can be able to stand. For God knows that the way of the righteous, for the Lord knows the way of the righteous, but the way of the ungodly will perish. They will not only perish, but their ways. Remember when he writes in the book of Revelation, it says, consider your ways. Yeah? When he writes to the seven churches, and I know you consider your ways, the ways of the unrighteous will perish. They will not only perish, but in their ways will perish together with them. How would you understand? So this should be our resolution, that we came to this life, and this life affords us an opportunity to participate in the things that are available in this life. We cannot create a different life. We cannot have a different life where things are all ideal according to our the things that we want. So we have got to participate in the things that are in this life with all our together of wanting to make a difference. It's the attitude that we need in this life. The attitude of wanting to be counted amongst the living. Wanting to be counted amongst the living. So do not cry, you children of the promise. But one of these days, Jesus will stand in your defense. These things that seem to be blocking your progress will be done away with very soon. So you don't need any reason for you to be concerned, because at the right time, just like you were able at the right time to give us the right spirit, through the spirit, at the right time, Michael is going to stand and come and fetch his children home. So it's going to stand, and before it stands, our little challenge for our existence is to try to contribute to this life. In our little corners, we used to sing right in the corner where you are. Now our little corners, stand up for Jesus. And the good God bless us forever. Amen.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you very much, God. Take home, faith everywhere, where we are now. It's transport. Faith is what is going to take us from where we are to the very end. So don't lose faith. Let us keep focused. We were once young. Junior, we were once young. Now we are. We are now adults, isn't it? Yes. And when it comes, we expect us ourselves to even bigger in our faith. Not to go back, not to go aside, but to hold on until the end. Can you close the number and sing again, day 5? Ngoba zininzi izinto esilungu esenza sithandabuza sifuna ujika esilungileyo. Namhlanje esilungileyo ukuze konzweni akusento esigcinayo esilungileyo ngoba siyakwazi ukusihlalela emakhaya sithi uba esilungileyo i-maturity sesifikile kulo sonke. Kanti esilungileyo abanye bethu basasilela. Sicinga abahleli ekhaya bayakhonza kanti benza izinto esilungileyo. Esilungileyo logama elisavuyo inkonzo besinayo this is our safety net. Used to come here, dear Lord, sizokudumisa. No, ukufika lapho yethu sikade sikude. Kodwa esilungileyo njengoba idepth yokuzama kwakho isondela sesityapha esilungileyo kwesikhona sikuze sigcineni esilungileyo ukuba sijongane singabantwana bakho. Sikhumbule ukuba ewe asiphiwanga ngokufanayo. Bakhona abanye esilungileyo spiritually abanee-disabilities ezithile ekufuneka neenkonzo sincedisane. Lowo unokhona amphakamise lowo uthandabuzayo. Lowo ukwazi ukunyamezela amphakamise lowo ubuthakathaka. Ukuze xa ufikayo ngamafezulu, xa ubuya ngamafezulu, sibe nokwazi ukuhlangabeza utsho ukuthi udiyeke mkhozi. Ngena emsindisweni engikulungiselela lona, uthembekile kwizinto ezincinci, ngakwenza ukuthembeka ezintweni ezinkulu. Ngesolungileyo singabantwana, kodwa ekudaleni bethu sibona singamangathalana. Ngesolungileyo izinto
sikamoya. Kodwa isiluleke xa ebhana eyasifelayo kama. Singabathalala sinjena sinako ukuba simele inyaniso zakho isiluleke. Yenza-ke isiluleke ukuba singabi ebuntwaneni bethu. Izinto esizenzileyo sokuvatyaza isono. Masigqithe kuzo isiluleke. Loo nto izinto masisuke nasenkumbulweni zabantwana bakho. Ukuze isiluleke isebenze lihle osenzele yona iyiyo inkumbulo negalelo elihle esilenzileyo ngabazifika ibe yiyo yesiluleke ngoba lilo elo galelo elinokwazi ukuba likhuthaze esizukulwana nezizukulwana ezizayo ngendlela ezihamba kuyo. Nomthixo sithandaqalise usigcine ngokuthembela phakathi sithandaza. Amen.